burnout and fatigue side, that's going to keep happening. As long as you have those long hour waits, it means that people are overworking. It's going to look at data sets that humans are not, or we haven't even looked into the shift-based employees, because these are the ones who are affected the most. The pilots, the cabin crew, the nurses, the warehouse workers. They're the ones who want to plan their lives, but they're dealing with outdated systems or humans. In Canada, we have a healthcare crisis.
He kept saying, I have this massive chest pain. He ended up waiting 7 or 8 hours. He finally got checked in. He passed away. How do we solve these issues?
How many people called sick every day? How many people didn't show up for flight? Weather, maintenance, seasonality, sickness, peaks, flu season, all of that into the AI, and then it can look into, here's your projected forecast. And that's one thing we're looking at, even for like the healthcare industry. Use AI to remove operational bottlenecks rather than just replacing headcount. And I think a lot of the mistakes people are doing now is that I think they're rushing to bring in AI tools to not hire more people or not to reduce their headcount.
Smart Workforce AI builds advanced solutions for workforce management, including AI forecasting, intelligent scheduling, and a smart AI assistant. Its tools automate complex tasks, optimizing productivity.
You are specific with AI, and we need people like you out there, because the way the world's changing, if you're not learning, you're going to be left behind really, really quickly. So that's why we need more podcasts like this to educate people and see the latest trends from industry experts.
Just as we're shutting down the podcast, Mohamed got a ping on his phone, some amazing news.
I just looked at my phone and it says you've been shortlisted for...
All right, everybody, welcome to the AI Space Podcast. AI isn't just the future. It's a force rewriting the rules of business, wealth creation, and society. If you're a founder, innovator, or technologist, this is the AI show for you. The question you have to ask yourself is, will I blaze a path, follow the crowd, or be left in the dust? This is season 2, 8th episode, and we're thrilled to have Mohamed Yousuf, founder and CEO of Smart Workforce AI. Smart Workforce AI builds advanced solutions for workforce management, including AI forecasting, intelligent scheduling, and a smart AI assistant. Its tools automate complex tasks, optimizing productivity, and integrates more AI systems than any other company in the space. Mohamed Yousuf is a workforce AI expert with 15 years of experience in planning and scheduling. He builds practical, people-first AI solutions that automate complex tasks, boost productivity, and improve employee experience. Hi, I'm Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors, your trusted advisor for AI founders and businesses focused on go-to-market strategy and execution. Mohamed, first of all, welcome. But on the AI Space Podcast, we jump right in to highlight game-changing insights that help founders drive innovation and scale business initiatives. Once again, welcome. But what do you see as the key trends in AI, especially going to 2026?
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to see you again, Sanjay. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. So there's been a lot of talk about agentic AI. We haven't seen a lot of its, full capacity as of yet. It's like more of a hype, but I believe that this coming year, we're going to see a lot more agentic AI teams. So you'll have maybe a CMO that's holds a budget for an agentic workforce team. One can go into marketing, one can go into ads. So I think it's going to be more of a agentic AI team rather than just, hey, just one workflow that does this, one workflow does that, more so that the agents are going to start talking to each other. So one will look at the ad spend, how much it led into the content flows or sales. So I believe they're going to start working together, and you might even have like a agentic manager where he allocates budgets based on performance. So I think we're going to look into more of that. Another thing is, I believe we're going to have a lot more vertical/domain specific AI, because I think a lot of people have already exhausted LLMs. Like you go back and forth with ChatGPT, Claude, or all of these new, very generic and broad AI tools out there. And a lot of us like look into specific things, and sometimes it takes like an hour back and forth with an LLM to get the required info. So I think a lot of things are going to be specific domains that are going to really take off, like a healthcare domain AI. So it can be like for scheduling, it can be for forecasting in our case, it can be for patient intake. A lot of the stuff is going to be more domain specific. And I think that's where a lot of companies are going to strive. They're going to look at their internal pain points and start building on that. And another thing I see a lot of people are doing, we're going to go towards a lot more hybrid systems. So we're not only going to have, just use this LLM. It's going to be, okay, you know what? How can I use ChatGPT to work with my Otter AI, meeting book note taker with my Notion AI project management? So you'll start looking into like, okay, the Otter AI, it gave me all of my meeting notes. You take that, put it into ChatGPT, clean it up, summarize it, whatever is already summarized there, but a deeper summarize. Take that into, or take it to Notion AI. Start saying, here's the meeting notes I've had for all my meetings this week. Can you break it down to what are the pending tasks and for which department? So maybe there's some sales questions, demo questions. Notion AI will start, creating projects. So that's another trend I think people are going to start using, is not just depending on a few AI tools, but to start picking from each one and using the best of each.
I think that's a good insight, especially on that. I know Otter AI and these tools, they do take meeting notes and provide action items, etc. But maybe you have for your company, you have your own persona, and your Chat GPT or custom GPT may have that persona. If you want to take those meeting minutes and start building notes or messaging or some sort of project management type scenario, that can be very helpful. What do you see as the top AI strategies to grow and scale a business?
Well, now a lot of the times we use AI as part of like a standalone, workflow. It's now we're going to have to bring it into our actual day-to-day lives. So when a manager is saying, "Hey, I need you to do this project," it should be okay. Create this AI workflow and keep it as part of your day-to-day thing. It's not just like, oh, when something comes up, I'll use this AI. You have to create these agentic workflows into our actual day-to-day lives. Another thing is also to use AI to remove operational bottlenecks rather than just replacing headcount. And I think a lot of the mistakes people are doing now is that I think they're rushing to bring in AI tools to not hire more people or not, to reduce their headcount. Again, if someone is as yourself, you'll see that there's a lot of AI hallucinations and it takes you so long to go back and forth to perfect it. So a lot of the stuff should be now, what are roles or tasks that you can put humans into where they can look at always evolving the AI tools. Not this AI tool is great now, we don't need to hire or we need to get rid of people. So the problem is the AI is always learning, and with a human touch, it's going to be a really big impact. And another thing is that there should be more sign-offs. So like building human in the loop sign-offs from day one. So anything that anyone presents or anything that comes from AI, there should be some human that's there to verify it. I don't know if you saw, there was this thing in Australia where the government, they outsourced some of their tasks or some research to McKinsey or some one of the big four consulting firms. They ended up getting sued because someone used AI and there was some hallucination there where it says this was a reference, which was not true. And then they had to pay a couple of $100K in legal fines because of that. So that's one thing, is we always have to still focus on that human touch, which I think people are rushing at the moment to remove.
I think it's important, especially, these consulting firms. I know from experience, you do a lot of market research, you do a lot of little things, you buy some market research, and those can be expensive. But the fact that, somebody's just copying and pasting something from ChatGPT, I mean, a lot of the sources, if anybody's really looked at some of these sources, I'm not sure if they use ChatGPT, but, any of these sources, you have to really check the sources in terms of the quality of the output. And the fact that it's probably most likely had to be a junior level person because they're the one doing the work, right? But the fact that it went through multiple layers of management in terms of a team, you probably have some sort of senior consultant manager, the partner, or whatever it's going to be, and reviewing that information is supposed to be reviewing that information, right? And those checks need to be in place, and that did not occur, and that's not good, right? And we have to always ensure quality regardless whether it's AI or not AI, right?
Correct. 100%.
We can take a step back now, relax, and we can enjoy ourselves a little bit more. So, Mohamed, can you tell us a little bit more about your background? What led you into this foray into AI?
So I started, I worked at my first job actually out of college and during my internship. So during, while I was in college as well, was in Air Canada. So it was one of the regional airlines, and I got straight to it. I was a day-to-day scheduler. So it wasn't the planning side. It was more like, okay, this pilot called sick, I need to cover his flight. So there was a lot of repetitive tasks, but it was always on the go. Okay, Christmas, 10 people called sick. So it was a lot of juggling. But when I was in this role, I always knew like when we had a good month is when the forecast was correct. Like, okay, you know what? We have the right amount of crew for the schedule. We know we're going to have a good month. You don't want to have too many. And for me, it would have been amazing to have too many crew, but then the company loses out on, payroll, right? But it's always good to have the right amount of crew and the right amount of standby. For some reason, that's never the case in aviation. It's always it moves so quick that sometimes you're overcrewed and then commercial comes in and they say, no, we need to sell more tickets. And then you're under. So it's always up and down. And I moved to Etihad shortly after. I went into crew scheduling as well, but that's where I got more into the scheduling and planning side. I was a crew scheduler. I moved into resource planning. This is where I learned a lot because everyone has different systems. So in crew scheduling, you had your own system to cover the flights. In resource planning, a lot of the people used different data points, different dashboards, boards. It was like many different systems, nothing really centralized. When I moved to another startup airline, low cost airline. That's when I was a manager for all departments. So I went crew scheduling, crew planning, and forecasting. And I realized one thing: if the forecasts are correct, the planners have an easy time building the schedule. If the schedule is built properly, the crew schedulers in the bottom who are dealing with the day-to-day have it easy. So that's when I realized. And then I moved into the filming industry and I learned same thing. I was scheduling, but I learned it was like when the shots would come in from, let's say, Disney or Netflix. Once they came into us, we look at, okay, how much work for each VFX artist. And it's all the same, supply and demand. And that's when I said, you know what? I need to build a system that's as optimized as possible. That helps the schedulers, helps the planners, helps the forecasters build based on heavy data. And then it lets them actually plan and do things a lot better.
Yeah. So going back to the airline example, right? I mean, there's so many factors. I don't know how you can ever get it correct. You got weather, you got time delays, you got maybe people getting sick, people stayed out too late. I won't say, maybe we don't know what they're doing, or maybe they're not in a shape to fly the plane the next day. Maintenance, it's like the worst thing I hate is like, you get on the plane and then you're sitting on there for 3 hours and they say there's a maintenance issue, then you come back off and all those things. So there's so many moving parts, right? So I don't know how you can ever was it ever a day where everything just lined up? Or did you ever have any of those days where everything just lined up perfectly?
Only when the schedule is reduced on Christmas Day. That's when it's a lot more relaxed because they cancel most of the flights. But usually every day it's go, go, go. What you said is exactly the reason why we need AI into this industry, into this field. Because as a human, you'll look at all the data in the past, how many people called sick every day, how many people didn't show up for flight, weather, maintenance, seasonality, a sickness, peaks, flu season, all of that into the AI. And then it can look into, here's your projected forecast. And that's one thing we're looking at, even for like the healthcare industry. Here in Canada, we have a healthcare crisis at the moment. If you saw, like last week, someone died in the ER, and even Elon Musk just recently tweeted about it. But if you look at it, they're always complaining about shortages of staff, right? But if you look at it, the forecasts, if it was done accurately, you have enough time to look for people, contact universities for graduates, all that. But they probably looked at, okay, here's what people called in sick, here's what our attrition rates are, here's our forecast, right? But one thing that they probably didn't look into, which is one of the biggest reasons we have this, is in the last 5 years since COVID, we've had the highest immigration trend, right? With an AI tool, you can look at, immigration trends from different sources. You can look at seasonalities like flu season. You can look at an aging demographic. Okay, you know what? The population is aging, which means they might require more, time to see the doctor, right? So this is where AI will really help us in the benefits of getting the right people at the right time without overstaffing or understaffing.
Right. Before we get into your current role, anything else from out there in terms of AI communities or speakers and speaking engagement, anything like that? Anything you've been doing?
Yeah, so I've been doing a few podcasts. I've done one with about two in the last month, within the last 60 days. I have 2 speaking engagements next year and some summits within Canada. I've just about to join Tech Nation, which is the biggest tech advisory board in Canada. So it's starting to pick up. Like, this was the year where I've always worked as a 9 to 5, behind the desk, do my job at home. But this is the first time where I said to myself, let me go out there and let me take this scary step of starting my own business. And with that, I also want to build a brand, because you can buy from any software, but you need to know the people behind it, their vision, and that's what I've been trying to do lately.
Yeah. So tell us about Smart Workforce AI. So why is now the time? Why'd you make the jump, and why do you believe there's demand for what you're doing?
So in 2023, the idea came up. It was just after the ChatGPT boom, and I guess the whole world woke up to AI, even though we've had it for a long, long time, right? It's just artificial intelligence. After that, I was doing a lot of research. I'm like, okay, you know what, man? What can I do? I'm trying to look into things. And I was just looking at random things like, okay, AI for marketing, AI for sales. And I realized it's people who are in their industry, learned a lot, they know their pain points, and then they branch out and create something that makes their job simpler. So I was like, why am I looking at these industries? Let me look at my own industry, right? I've been doing this for so many years. So I looked, there's a lot of pain points. And I'm not only saying from the management and staff side of things, even from the end users, which are the shift-based employees, because these are the ones who are affected the most. The pilots, the cabin crew, the nurses, the warehouse workers. They're the ones who want to plan their lives, but they're dealing with outdated systems or humans. Like I was a scheduler once, and a lot of the times it's not that I can always say yes to everyone, but the times I said no, it wasn't because I couldn't do it. It was also because you have, let's say, 10,000 staff asking you for a request, and you have, let's say, 5 planners. You can't accommodate everyone. So you usually push them away, talk to your management, and then their management will assess how serious it is, and then filter 80-90% of it and only give us the top ones, which is not fair, right? Because then ideally you don't have control of your life. So what we're trying to do is, instead of a human always getting these requests and not able to accommodate, we're trying to make it autonomous. So I'm a nurse and I'm on vacation and I'm having a great time, and I want to extend my vacation by like 5 days. Usually,
Yeah, good luck there.
yeah, but then like in the future, like your manager will be like, oh, you know what, he's busy or he's doing running shifts or managing things. Might not get to it. It's like, no, we need you back. But what if they could go into AI, go into the system? Hey, I want to request 5 additional vacation days. It can send it out to someone who's available, and that person, like a Uber ping, it'll ping everyone who can take it, and then it can say, all right, you're accepted for these 5 days, and we'll remove it from this time of the year. So that's stuff that it saves the manager's time, and it actually gives them a lot more freedom. And if your company, like if your company says, I want you to work 200 hours a month maximum before overtime, but a minimum of 150, they should be able to swap and do whatever they want in the middle without bothering the manager. They can swap 100 times, right? As long as they're in that threshold. And that's what AI is going to bring back. It's going to bring back that flexibility to our shift-based workers.
Yeah, so my wife's a physical therapist, and she's probably the number one supporter of this podcast. So, so from what I understand, when you need to, obviously you got to go request the days off because spring break's going to come up, or we're going to request days for spring break, etc. Right? But you got to make sure there's coverage, right? Whether it's a hospital or a pilot or even the workforce, because I know you can have 4 weeks of vacation, but doesn't mean you can get 4 weeks contiguous, right? And so then, especially in the physical therapist situation or nurse situation or other sort of healthcare, then you got to check, okay, is there a full, I guess hopefully the AI can help. And so you calling and finding out, hey, Jane or Bob, are you available on this day? The AI can help. Like you said, if it's within that window, they can pick that day, and you can get 5 people on, maybe 5 different people on the days, or one person can do 2 out of the 5 days. But then if those full-time people are not available, then you have to probably go to the PRN, the part-time people. But there's a cost to that, to the company, right? Then that has to be within a budget where you don't want to go over budget in terms of your part-time help, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. When it comes to the system, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it as flexible as possible for the employees without costing the company, right? So if they want to swap out as many shifts as they want, they'll have to give or take, right? So they might swap with someone here, but that guy is going to go into overtime. So they'll take one shift from here, give him one here. But the whole point is that we don't want one person just to end up not working, sitting at home, and then people are getting overtime, or they're hiring like freelance nurses or part-timers. So that rule sets are built in the optimization where you have your mins and maxes. And obviously when you have like, if you have like these last minute scheduling, it's always someone has to cover it. It's not like you can just take it off and then the shift is open for OT. It's always like a negotiation with people. A lot of times is if you guys have your own, someone that you know who will take it, you can go and request it yourself. Or, like I said, this is the feature that is the one that we're going to be most focused on, is it sends it out to as many people as possible. And if someone's at home, it's like, you know what, I can take this shift on Thursday, accept, but it always has to meet. Because at the end of the day, we want to give the flexibility without the company losing money, or else it defeats the purpose.
Right. Or maybe there's there's somebody that's always trying to pick up hours, right? But you want to make sure that they can pick up hours without going over budget and getting time and a half or what have you, right? To balance some of those things, right? So in terms of your role and mandate, what's your role and mandate, and how y'all get going?
Yeah, so my goal, or my plan is, I always say this: let the managers manage and let the employees enjoy their life. Because right now, if you look at statistics, right, I was reading somewhere, was it 50% of nurses in Canada, by the time they're 35, they either change their careers, or they change their careers, or they resign from their job, because it's that burnout, fatigue. So my goal is, I want not only to sell to businesses, to tell them, hey, you guys are going to save money, but at the same time, look at the welfare side of things, right? AI is not here to take our jobs. AI is here to help us, reach our highest capacity. And with that, my mission is to start off first at, an AI scheduling feature, AI optimizer, and an AI forecasting tool. with a smart assistant. So we want to since we had ChatGPT now, everyone loves conversational AI, right? For me, when I was in these scheduling roles, a lot of the times I have to go into click here or click here or click here. What we want to make it is also the same thing. So it's conversational for both the employee and for the employer. So I'm an admin. I can, instead of quickly going and checking and moving things, I want to start talking to the AI. I'll be like, hey, before I start my day, I can be like, how many sick shifts do we have today? Enter, and it'll reply. It'll look in the system, look at the workflows. It'll be like, you have 4 line cooks and 2 waiters who are open today. Can you see who's available? It will give you, okay, these people are available. Can you send them a push notification on their phone? This is going to make the employer side. The second thing is also the chat version is having this smart assistant where they can talk like, hey, I don't feel like going to work tomorrow. Are there people available to take my shift? And then you click go. It sings a ping, who's available. Is available, do you accept? Or I want to call sick. Instead of always calling the manager sick, hey, I'm reporting in sick. That's our mandate. We want to, and this is not really seen in industry. There's only one competitor that has starting to just now has a wait list for their AI tool, which is Deputy, but they're about a trillion dollar company. I remember, if I was correct. So there's a lot of space to grow. My goal is to get out there, let people know that AI is our friend. That's what I want to do.
Right. So you're the CEO and founder. So what does your team look like?
So I'm the CEO and the founder. I have Shandan Mishra. He's the CPTO, Chief Product and Tech. He's an AI researcher, so he's the brains behind the scenes. So I'm more of the business knowledge. He's behind the scenes. He's the one always coming to me with really cool new things, and he's always traveling, by the way. So he's learning the latest trends. Like last month, I think he was at 5 or 6 conferences all over. So he's the one who always educates me with what we can do next. And that's the beauty, because with AI, it's not like before. In the past, when we had the internet boom, it took like 10 years before a new update, and it's just slow updates, and then the app boom, and then the SaaS boom. But the AI boom now is that if you're not ahead, or if you're not investing in R&D, you can easily be left behind. So you just gotta keep investing into R&D and keep learning. And that's what he's really helpful, because he always says, hey, I just got a new idea. Why don't we add this tool and do it? So that's him. We have we have one internal, he's worked in operations roles in scheduling. So he's the one also, me and him, and we brainstorm on ideas. I'm okay, remember when we used to do this? How can we improve? And what we're doing at the moment, as we're expanding, we're looking at outreach companies that do our outreach. So we're looking at email marketing, LinkedIn, which we're going to have a new push in January. And with that, we are in control of the situation, because we want the message to be out and not just some spam, mail that goes out.
Very good. And then in terms of target segments and use case, I think you talked about some. Seems to be healthcare. Are you working with airlines? So who are your key segments and the use cases that you're working with?
Interestingly enough, even though I talked about airline and healthcare, what we're starting off and what I'm pushing, I want to actually go out for the small and mid-sized businesses. And the reason why I'm saying that is that these are the ones who don't know that they can have this service at a cheap price. If you go to a company that has like 60 or 70 shift-based companies, like say a warehouse, right? You have a ship supervisor. He might have an Excel, all the names, company phone when someone calls sick. They're probably thinking, because a lot of the legacy systems are very expensive, and not only expensive, just to onboard them, it can be tens of thousands of dollars with a long onboarding process. What we want to do is we want to first reach out to these smaller businesses, between 50 to 200 shift-based employees. And we want to let them know that it's just from the time they sign up, we can integrate them within 72 hours. Once they're integrated, we give them on a month on, no 3-year, 4-year contract, just month on contract. And also, it also gives us an incentive, because the more that they stay with us, the more the system learns their patterns. Because in the beginning, we actually tell them, if you'd like, try to do everything manually, so it can learn how you cover shifts, how you forecast your data, all of that. So once they're invested like 6 months in, and they're going to start seeing the system, optimize, that's when it's going to be a long-term client. But SMBs are our main ones. Like, we'll accept enterprises, we have no issue, but these are the ones we wanted to know that you're not going to pay thousands of dollars. We have usually between $5 to $7 per user. If you have 100 staff, you're looking at $500 to $700 per month. That's very basic compared to what they're going to save, right? They're going to save on turnover. They're going to save on productivity. They're going to save on, there's a lot of factors that they can save from there.
All right, cool. Let's shift a little bit into the tech stack, what tools and frameworks are essential for building a solid AI ML architecture and tech stack? So as you're building out, are there any methodologies or frameworks that you've been looking at, or your CPTO has been looking at?
Yeah, so I always discuss with them. So we are going to be using in the beginning generic like LLMs. So we're going to have bigger companies like we might integrate it with say like ChatGPT to help us with the conversational AI. There's other ML forecasting tools that we're going to use. We're looking at Meta's Profit, for example. It's going to help us a lot with the forecasting and demand tools. However, once we get big enough and we have a lot of our own data, we're going to probably use our own cloud to store all the data and start, optimizing from our own AI data for the clients. And yeah, it's there's some OR tools as well. There's a lot of things we're slowly integrating, but at the same time, we don't want it to have a lot of different costs because at the end we want to make it as cheap as possible. We want to see what the client uses. We don't want to end up tokenizing them to the point where we are not profitable anymore because we have all of these AI integrations. Right. Our goal is to have a few and then let the system build its own data.
Right. So I guess you're using some LLMs right now, right? I guess those are the ones that are the ones out there, right? Or you say you're planning to leverage some custom ones or build your own?
Yeah, that's more of Shandan's tool. He's building some workflows in the back end. I believe he told me at 989. There's some other things that he is working on the back end. It's more for like the agentic side of things, like when when you're speaking with the tool, like, hey, how many open shifts do we have? So it will go and work behind the scenes to the open shifts. And as you say, and how to cover it, because obviously when you're saying, hey, can you cover, can you look for people who can get, there's going to be a lot of agentic AI in the background that needs to be. So there's a lot of custom work he's working on with his team at the moment.
As we get further into architecture, platforms, tools, how are you approaching from an automation perspective and the agentic AI perspective?
We built an AI optimizer. With this optimizer, what it does is it looks at the compliance and rule sets. So the company, if they have their own labor law, their own company laws with the labor laws, we have like a Dropbox in our settings where they can just drop all that information so the system can learn, okay, these are the rules.
So that would be like the RAG, the retrieval augmented.
And with that, we also have compliance-based historical learning. So it can look at how the schedules were built. It can look at trends, like if you have a midnight shift and like 40 or 50% of the time people report sick for this shift, the system will learn, okay, you know what, it's better to optimize it where you can give one person this shift a month rather than having someone have 4 or 5 where he's going to report sick. So a lot of that learning behind the scenes, a lot of that compliance rule set optimization. Another thing also is it could also look at, for example, I don't know how to explain this from nothing. When it builds a schedule, it's going to build it based on, okay, here's a demand, here's the fatigue score. So the fatigue score is like, if they saw a trend of like someone who had 4 or 5 shifts in a row and ended up calling in sick, it'll know there was some sort of trend going on there. So we're just trying to teach it as much as possible. And we're also learning from our pilot companies that we had in the beginning. What are things that worked? What are trends that didn't work? How to reduce attrition? So yeah. That's for the optimization side of things.
Yeah, especially in the case of like say nurses or whatever, they maybe, I don't know how it works in Canada versus US because my mom was a nurse when we were growing up. They can pick up 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts, and so it's not just a standard 8-hour shift. I think that's important, the fatigue score, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have a healthy workforce, and you want to avoid the burnout that you mentioned. That they're working these long shifts, they're not getting days off, they're not able to get vacation, and that's where you get the burnout, people quitting, right?
Exactly, and that's the thing. What we're going to implement, we're gonna have a scorecard at the end of every shift. So at the end of every shift, it could be just like 3 questions: How tiring was the shift? How satisfying was this? Is this one of your ideal shifts? So with that, just end of every shift, like just something quick, 1 to 5 star. It also lets us know, okay, you know what, these are going to be the higher fatigue scored shifts. These are the lower ones, and then just continually build as we go.
Yeah, I guess going back to what you said. So you have some sort of RAG, retrieval augmented generated, like a database, right? So you can probably put the employee handbook, the local laws, Canadian laws. If you're in Quebec versus Ontario, right? You can have different laws. You can have English and French, depending on situation, right? So there's a lot of different things that need to be done. And then how are you handling? I guess how are people able to log in, and from a security, how are you able to manage all that too, right?
Yeah, so right now we have a lot of the companies, we let them know as well, like it's more for the enterprise level. That's when they're really, a lot of the companies we've onboarded so far are smaller based companies, and we also offer them, like, if instead of integrating any outside systems where we have less protection, we you tell them if you want to create like your own custom SLM where you put all your data, you put all your APIs for forecasting, like for let's say for a Foot Locker, sales traffic is one thing, right? We can just use all the internal data that they have to create like some sort of SLM for them, rather than connecting it to the larger ones out there. So we do have this conversation with them. That's where Shandan comes into place, where he goes and actually looks deep into it. We're looking to get SOC 2. That we're looking for in the future once we start building on the momentum. But for the small SMBs at the moment, we're keeping everything in our own cloud with these outside AI tools, but we're also proposing to keep a lot of the stuff as on. But I like you said, as we get bigger, and once we get the enterprises, they're very strict with data privacy, data security. That's when we're going to have different layers for that.
So you're talking about, I guess, a lot of these large language models are very generic, right? And we talked about the opening of the top trends beginning to more vertical. So you talked about SLM, small language models, right? Last year we had Julian Simone from RC.ai talking about small language models. He's actually coming back for season 2. He's in a new role, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so you have that, and then you have stuff in the cloud. Is there any stuff that's on-prem at this time, or just everything's in the cloud?
At the cloud at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I guess when you also get to the higher level, the larger enterprises, there may be some sort of an on-prem component, or at some point, when you get large enough too, you may not want everything in the cloud too, right? So in terms
Exactly.
of latency and cost and quality, etc., right? Let's shift gears a little bit. What about the AI Space podcast resonate with you and say, hey, I'd like to be a guest on the show?
Man, it's especially because you are specific with AI, and we need people like you out there, because the way the world's changing, if you're not learning, you're going to be left behind really, really quickly. So that's really good. And you're probably just having all these different people. You're learning so much every single day. And I think a lot more people should start watching podcasts like this, because, like I said earlier, it's not like any other tech revolution that we've had, that if you miss a couple of months just sitting at home, and you'll see like a huge change, right? So that's why we need more podcasts like this to educate people and see the latest trends from industry experts, or else it's not going to be a...
Yeah, you're based in Canada, so how the heck did you find me?
On LinkedIn. I think I must have seen it probably on my feed, or just yeah, it was on LinkedIn, and I saw like you had some really cool people on your podcast, and probably more.
Yeah, no, I've been posting, I started a year ago. We're in season 2 now, so thanks for helping me kick off season 2. And yeah, I was posting on LinkedIn, for a year. And sometimes you think nobody sees anything you post, but it's about getting the word out, and we'll get into some of those things too later. And you actually reached out to me several months ago, right, about coming on the podcast. At that time, I was bi-weekly, so I had only certain slots. And now that I'm in season 2, I have a bi-weekly slots. I said, I moved to weekly. And so I have a lot more slots, and I say, hey, I want to open it up to talk to people that are, even in some of the early stages building out. And I think, and we'll talk about it, I guess, when we get into sales and marketing, one of the things I mentioned to you, but that's really cool. So thanks for being here. So before we continue, I want to invite everyone to follow Mohamed. Definitely like, comment, subscribe to the AI Space podcast, because that helps us grow to have more innovative guests like Mohamed, even all the way from Canada, right? And if you're stuck in your business and looking to grow and figuring out 2026, you can schedule a 15-minute meeting with me. So let's take a different aspect. We've talked about technology, right? What do you think are some of the critical aspects around vision, mindset, strategy for long-term success?
One thing is continuous R&D. Don't just, set and forget. Whenever you have an AI tool, like for us, what I want to do is I want to create Smart Workforce to be an operating system. But we're going to always have to upgrade. We can't just say, okay, you know what, the scheduler works fine, the AI forecast tool is fine, and that's it. The way the world works is now you need to continuously upgrade your systems. Like for my vision for AI Smart Workforce is it becomes so easy for shift-based staff to live their life normally. It's going to come to a point where they're just going to start talking to it like they talk to ChatGPT. Hey, Smart. We're thinking of the name of they're renaming it, but it's going to be, hey, Smart. Looking at removing a shift next week. Not sure which one. I want to take a break. Do you know where we have more availability? It'll say, oh, you should maybe on Tuesday next week, you probably have a better chance because there's more people who are available. Okay, can you send them? So that is good. Another thing also, I believe, especially the way with AI coming in, our lives are going to be freed a lot more, right? We're going to be having a much better lifestyle because we can actually use our brains more for creativity rather than, repetitive tasks. And one thing I'm thinking the future is that it's not only going to be just shifts, right? There could be something like we're working on in the future is like micro shifts. So I might be a waiter and I have, an 8 hour shift tomorrow and you have an 8 hour shift, 3 days down the line. I'm out with friends today and I'm thinking I want to stay out a little bit longer with them. I might be able to say, hey, Sanjay, or just request on the thing. I want to swap out the first 2 hours of my shift and then I'll load it up in another shift. These things are not done now because it's too complex, too much manpower is just for hours to be saved. So there could be a time where we'll be so flexible, not only with our shifts, but with the hours within our shifts to the point where people actually live their best lives, right? That's the ultimate goal. From an employer perspective, they're going to have the right forecasting tools, right forecasting numbers. So they're not always panic hiring and panic firing, which you see a lot of companies. And you as a consultant, you probably see it all the time where the big companies might come to you and say, oh, you know what, we need to restructure our business. Can you come help us? You'd go in there, you'd see. And then a lot of times the same people might come like 6 months to a year later and say, oh, business is booming and we need to, restructure again. And I do consultancy as well, and that's for airlines specific. It's for manpower planning. And it's the same thing. We're booming. We have a schedule. We have this. But ideally, if you have a live AI forecasting tool that looks at all the APIs, all the integration, you can then see that, okay, you know what? Here's what you need, your core staff, and here's your nice to have. Like you can have a part-time pool when a peak, and then you can before when it drops, you just always make sure you have that core line there.
Yeah, I think what you're saying also as you evolve the business, right? The next stage, or if you haven't already done it, besides, scheduling and the planning of the workforce, right? You may see, well, because of what's happening and the amount of people calling in sick and all this other stuff that, hey, you're going to have maybe some attrition or churn. You're going to maybe seasonality, maybe something's happening in 2026. You're going to need to increase your workforce by 10%, but that's going to increase your costs by X%. So either you have to do a mix of AI or other things, but it's also it looks like you're going to have to get into some workforce planning down the road too, right?
Yeah. One thing, what we're looking at in the long-term vision is a one-stop shop, like an integrated marketplace. So like say you're a hotel, right? And you have your core staff, but you do know that, seasonality picks up, holidays, summer, such that you could have people who are already trained, let's say hoteliers and cash, whatever department you need, they can be in the smart workforce marketplace. And as long as they're still available, they can always adjust their availability into that system. So I can say I'm available March, April, but not, May, June, July. When you have that AI forecast shows you, or you have a peak for 2 weeks here, it can trigger to that manager. And also at the same time in that marketplace, it can trigger these are available people. This is something in the long term. So it kind of lets you have the forecast and also give them that's a problem for them if they have increased, but it also has a solution.
Yeah. So from a sales and marketing perspective, what insights can you share about getting your first clients and expanding your clientele?
The beginning was always the first this year. It was 2025 was founder led. I went back to my network. I reached out to a lot of people I knew. I told them what I was doing. I managed to we closed a few clients based on that. We got a few pilots. At the beginning, we didn't even charge them anything. We wanted to actually test what the things that I'm saying are true. And we learned a lot from these pilots. A lot of it was just reaching out to connections. We reached out to one hospital chain in Vancouver, and they've got a really big staffing, but we didn't go to them and say, hey, can we take on your whole? We reached out to them saying we want a department in your hospital. And now we're in talks to get this pilot program working for the new year. But now next year, in 2026, we're going to rapidly scale. And with that, we're going to use email marketing with proven stats, because we didn't want to go and send out, email marketing campaigns without what we learned. Okay, you're gonna reduce attrition by this much. You're gonna increase productivity. The system can take over X amount. We're gonna do our email marketing campaign, our LinkedIn campaign, but very hyper personalized. I don't want one generic message to go to everyone and then losing credibility. Just saying, hey, we want to actually work with a team and let them know less is more in this sense. So LinkedIn, email marketing. I'm not going to go Google Ads as of yet, because I feel that, especially me, when I was always looking for scheduling systems, it was never through like a Google search. It was always through word of mouth or through LinkedIn. So yeah, so we are going pretty hard in January, February, March, the first quarter. Email, LinkedIn. Shandan created a sales agent, SDR, but we're going to make sure that we do it the right way. We don't want to just hyper spam people.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm sure in the beginning, yeah, you're leveraging most founders leveraging your relationships, previous experiences, a lot of brute force, a lot of customization, etc. I worked with some founders in 2025. The common one example is one guy grew to $1 million. Great problem to have, but he had leveraged his previous contacts and relations, but he knew he couldn't scale beyond that. So we actually took a step back and looked at his vision and strategy, his offer, his messaging, his pitch. Also, instead of just all being all outreach to, how do you become a lead magnet? So people are reaching out to you. So now he's going and building out his campaigns, because before he did that, he's like, yeah, I'm sending stuff to my salespeople, these lead gen folks in the Philippines, and nothing's happening. It's like, yeah, garbage in, garbage out. If you can't articulate your vision and strategy and articulate your offer in a meaningful way that people are willing to hand over money, then how can you expect some salesperson or some junior level person in lead gen to be able to do that, right? So those are critical insights. And then you are kind of alluding to it as you're going into 2026. You're going to have to like streamline operations and scale, right? Whether it's for you or for your clientele. So what insights do you have around streamlining operations and scaling a business?
Yeah. So one thing I believe is that our name is Smart Workforce, right? So we want to make things smarter, simpler, as easy as possible. For our team, we are going to we have the right people in the right places, but we also encourage them to start using a lot of the new tools out there, continuously learn what's out there. And from a scale perspective, one thing, like you mentioned, which is a good point, is one thing I'm also a little bit worried about, which I have to prepare for, is let's say we scale too fast, and then you kind of have a PR nightmare where you can't, onboard as many people as possible. So that's when it comes to like the actual steps. What next? I always say like, okay, you say we close 100 companies in the next 3 months, right? What next? Do you just set, like I said, set and forget? So okay, you got the outreach, they came back to you, you got the demo, you got the discovery call, could have it in the same demo. Then you've done the demo, they want to sign up, you onboard them in 72 hours, and then okay, we have a customer. No, you need to constantly be in touch with them. You need to always you should have like a customer success manager all time. So this guy will look into them and say, what are your pain points? Reach out to them, because if you don't engage with them, a lot of people might just use it as a system and not know the full capacity, and you don't know how to integrate their POS or their POS systems and such. So one thing is, from always look at scaling, but at the same time don't scale to the point where you're just, everyone is just a number. Like, okay, we signed him next, we signed him next. Keep that human touch in there, keep that connection always open.
And I think it's so important, a human connection touch. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention also, when you had reached out to me, you filled out the guest profile, etc. Then I looked at your LinkedIn connection. I think it was like around 1,000 at the time. I said, hey, not now, but maybe when things, and I told you, until then, work on your LinkedIn, right? So maybe you can give some insights to the folks out there. Was that good advice or not?
That was fantastic, because I remember, I guess I was it was my first time ever actually going out, and I'm like, okay, let me find some podcasts, and you gave me perfect advice, because you were not like, you didn't ghost me, or you didn't say, oh, this guy is just exactly. And I really respected that, because you were like, you know what, man, keep it up, keep your engagements going, you're posting, and that's what I did. I continued to post 5 times a week, even though it was difficult sometimes when you'll see like one post, you'll be like, "Ah, I'm not getting enough likes, or what am I doing wrong?" And then out of nowhere, you'll get like one post I got had like 20,000 views. And I'm like, so it's just always never stop, and that's one thing you try to keep it. And then this wouldn't happen if I didn't listen to that. If I just said, oh, you know what, I'll just continue with sales and just pushing things out, building a brand, I would never, been reached out to. And I've already, I think I'm now at almost 5,500, and I'm still growing, just trying to build that. what I'm trying to do, I want to be that person to look at, future of work, the positive sides of AI. You see a lot of things in the news that are a bit negative, where AI is taking our jobs, AI is this, and we have to have that positive outlook and also some of that ethics and compliance to it. Because now I go on Instagram, for example, and sometimes I get really upset because I see a ridiculous video, and I'm like, is that AI or is it real? Then I read the comments, and everyone's like, that's AI, it's AI. So we're also getting into a dangerous or a scary place with AI, and yeah. But yeah, sorry, I got a little distracted there. But like Max said, I was really grateful for your comments.
Yeah, I'm definitely not AI. Just kidding. No, that's one thing I want to make about this show, that it's actually real content, and with meeting with real people, sharing real insights. Going back to the LinkedIn, what was I going to say about the LinkedIn? But I'm glad you were able to boost it. Yeah, just just like, for example, like, there's times I post and like sometimes you wonder, okay, there's not that many likes or engagements. I've had people tell me, hey, you have some amazing posts, but they never liked or engaged with it, right? Speaking of, you said you saw one of my posts or whatever, but I don't remember you liking or engaging, and now you're on the podcast, brother. Not just
No,
kidding.
no, I have to. Yeah, I
See, so
gotta.
it does work, even if there's no likes or engagement,
Yeah, no,
the people do show. I'm just giving you a hard time, just to
yeah, no, no. You're right, man. That's the thing. Like you said, we always saying like, how come no one's doing this? But then if we don't do it ourselves, it's a two-way street. It's a
yeah,
two-way
yeah,
street.
just having a good time. So in terms of democratization, what do you see as the key opportunities and challenges in making AI accessible to founders and businesses from a variety of industries, experiences, backgrounds? How do we bridge this gap, right?
To be fair with you, I really think that what AI is going to give us in source, like in the type of income and probably it's going to be really very readily, like the return on investment is going to be very high. And I honestly think that companies all really need to look at AI budgets, and I think a lot of them are doing. A lot of companies need to bring some consultants in ASAP because everyone's trying to scale AI by themselves, and the money and time they're putting into failed attempts is not going to lead them to where they want. They should get the AI consultants just to give them a framework. Okay, here's what your business looks like. Here are what you need to invest. Here's the budget you need to give. And every department, you know how you have a budget for different things. That tech budget, there should be an AI budget within it to look at ways. And everyone knows themselves better than what their manager knows. So you can look into what is out there, right? What workflows you can create, and so on. So I think they should look into AI tools. Another thing also, so consultants, AI tools, making AI part of the employees. So these AI employees are part of us. They have, if you don't ride the wave, you're going to be left behind. That's definitely one thing I would say. Another thing I think, outside of the corporation, right? I think that the governments, they will get the returns in the coming years, right? They're going to get it back tenfold, I would say. They need to start looking at or having some think panel or committees where I think a lot are doing it, but retraining budgets. So reskilling, retraining budgets, because all you see in the news, UPS is laying off 20,000 people, or Amazon thing, but it doesn't tell you like what are the new AI jobs that are coming up. And I think I read somewhere in the World Economic Forum or somewhere where it's like 49, 50 million jobs will be displaced because of AI. However, you're going to have hundreds of millions new jobs in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's because there are going to be new jobs created, and there's going to be shifts. Like a lot of the stuff, I don't know how to explain it. In the Industrial Revolution, it's like we went from the hands-on jobs towards the desk jobs. But I feel like we're going to go, a lot more people are going to go away from the desk jobs and into more of the maybe hands-on or more customer service or creative side of things, which is a beautiful thing. But it just depends how we do it. It's either we can put the money up front now and let it work and get the returns in a couple of years, or we can just start cutting costs and laying off people. So I think there's a moral obligation from the corporations and from the government.
Yeah, I think it's going to open up new opportunities. I think one of the episodes before, you were talking about how AI is creating the rise of Gen X solopreneurs, right? I'm actually a Gen Xer, so I'm going to be 53 this year, and I've had to reinvent myself. Got into AI, and now this podcast is, I'm turning into a creator and a host, and it's taking me down a different path because I'm using LLM tools, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, all those things, right? I'm using image creation, workflows, automation, talking to all these different types of people and different things. So I think there's going to be more a creative side that's going to be unlocked. I think with AI, and the other aspect too about variety of backgrounds, etc. So you're based in Vancouver, Canada, right?
Yeah, Vancouver, but I'm in Toronto at the moment, but we are both in Vancouver and Toronto.
So cool. Now we have somebody from Canada. So, welcome. Well, hopefully, welcome to our new Canadian audience. We've had folks from France, and one of the recent episodes now from Thailand, and, people from different parts of the world, so trying to expand this. I got somebody in an episode coming up, somebody actually from South Africa. So I'm trying to make it here, have different voices come out here. And it's not about DEI, it's just having people that are actually building cool stuff out there. And so, if you don't mind me asking me, to talk about democratization, people with different backgrounds. So where did you come from to go, to get to Canada? I mean, I think that that's a unique story for people.
Yes, my parents, they were born and raised in Yemen. They moved to Abu Dhabi during the late 80s, and what happened at that time, it was there was that Gulf War going on in the region, and that's when they started to think like, you know what, safety is first. And at that time, no
Are
one
you
knew.
talking when you say Gulf War, you're talking about the Iraq war?
Iraq Kuwait War in 1990. So they were
because
like,
you said 80s, so that's what I was okay. Yeah, 90s was
yeah,
Kuwait, yeah.
1990s when it happened, and that's when they realized. 'Cause at that point, no one knew how far it was going to expand, right? So they're like, you know what, we need to go and we need to move somewhere where it's very safe. So out of all the places, they chose probably the coldest place in the world. They chose Calgary, Alberta. So I grew up in Calgary. I just a regular, regular kid in Calgary, but I moved out here to Toronto region when I went to university, and I built my career. But since then, I've been like a digital nomad. So I lived four years in Abu Dhabi. I lived 4 years in Saudi Arabia in Jeddah. Then I came to Montreal. I lived there for a year. I did some work online where I was in Brazil. Last year, I did 6 months consultancy in 2024 in Morocco for their airline over there. So I don't know how to explain it. So I'm a bit all over, but
yeah, that's cool. And for those people that don't know where Yemen is, it's on the southern coast of the Arabian Peninsula, right? Just south of Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah, it's got some problems there now, but
yeah, a lot of problems with the Houthis and all that kind of stuff, right? So hopefully, wishing safety for everybody out there. So in terms of, we always talk about ethical and responsible AI. So how do we balance AI innovation with the responsible development, right?
This is I'm part of an ethical committee now here in Canada, and we talk a lot about this. And a lot of it is that we have to come out first, because just like any any advancement in technology, we're always going to see it falling into the wrong hands. So there needs to be a very strong ethical, I don't know how to say it, ethical responsibility from everyone, right? From every owner, anyone who uses AI. A lot of the things is, especially with data, right? Now with the bigger, larger LLMs and stuff, they've got their very strong data security and all of that stuff. But even for the people who are building smaller AI tools, they need to make sure that they're all keeping people's data safe. They're not. There's no chances for people to get hacked or their data to be sent to different companies. We all have this responsibility as humans today, and I think the same way that we're moving with advancements, I think that we're also building on that as well. And I've seen this in these committees and the way they look at every single document, let's say governance that's going out. And it's usually not just 1, 2 people. We have sometimes 15 people in the meeting all going through a document. So we're heading in the right place, but as long as good, outraces the bad, it will always be ahead of that.
Yeah, I think, people just want to run into AI, and I think one of the things if you want to be successful, I think you need to have a governance model in place. You got to figure out the security, who has access to what, human in the loop, all those different types of things, right? Because it's important to build out responsibly. And before, when I started the show, I thought, okay, just going to invite. My goal is to invite founders, technologists, people building the space to share insights. But then, because of this question, I see that people have a wide range of yes, we are, or I'm, well, okay, maybe I'm not going to do anything about it. And I think maybe the hidden reason for me having this show now which is no longer hidden, is that to raise awareness about the risks. There are good things going to happen with AI, but there are risks and there's dystopian scenarios, right? And we need to be aware of what's coming down the pipe, because people are predicting mass unemployment, right? What are people going to do? What's a sense of purpose? How do you make money, right? Those are hard questions we're going to have to figure out and grapple with. and it's going to put a strain on any, whether it's a capitalistic system or a
Exactly.
democratic socialist system, right? And going back to what you said, yeah, I was aware of this scenario. There was a gentleman, I think he was of Indian origin, in Canada, right? And he had some chest pains, and he went to the doctor, emergency room, and they told him to wait, and it wasn't high on the criteria or whatever. And then he kept saying, "I have this massive chest pain." He ended up waiting 7 or 8 hours. He finally got checked in. He passed away. How do we solve these issues?
My brother actually was in the hospital. He had allergic reaction about a week ago, a week and a half ago. And when you go there, you go on the screen and you see the wait time is like 5 hours. So they already know there's a problem. So it's not like you go there and you wait and wait. They have a problem. And what the problem is that they're getting high attrition, a lot of sick calls, and a lot of it also deals with forecasting, right? Like there's no way that you can't forecast things in advance. And if you do have a big shortage coming up, you need to start talking with the universities. You need to start, looking at ways with the government to subsidize their costs to study, because the government ends up making money, right? If you end up saying, okay, we're going to pay 50% of a nurse's degree or licensing, right? They're going to end up getting that money in the future from taxes, right? And you're not going to have this PR nightmare where you have someone dying in the ER because you can. So there are ways to look at it, and that's why we need AI to do this, because from the burnout and fatigue side, that's going to keep happening. As long as you have those long hour waits, it means that people are overworking. It's going to look at data sets that humans are not, or we haven't even looked into, look at seasonality, like we discussed earlier. So we all have an ethical responsibility. Our goal is, try to do our jobs to the best we can and enjoy ourselves at the same time and doing it right. And like you said, it's
and I know you didn't mean this. I mean, it is a PR nightmare, but it's obviously beyond PR, right? It's just basic human dignity and the value of human life, right? And those are things that need to be important. Here in the U.S., I mean, we may have to wait 3 hours. I don't go to the emergency rooms. I try to avoid any. I'm not sick that often, but if I ever have to go, there's some of these places where you can. It's not a hospital, it's like a 24 care center, and you can go online, check in, and you can wait at your house, and they'll send you a text message or call you and say, hey, how soon can you get here? Like 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever. And then you go there and you get checked in, and yeah, you may have to wait a little bit longer once you get checked in, but it's nowhere near the 3 to 8 or 9 hours, right? But then you got to be also careful that they don't overprescribe you and say, hey, you want this extra shot, because they got to make their money, right? You want, it's like on your hip. It's like, no, dude, I don't need a shot on my hip or was it cortisol? That's what it is. They always offer you cortisol or something like that. No, I'm okay. I don't need the cortisol,
It's always cortisol, man, all the time.
I'm sure you don't have any pain. It's okay, bro, or cis or whatever it's going to be, yeah, but so. And that's what we're going to get to. Is like, it's great that they provide that service, but then to upsell other services like cortisol, you got to balance out the ethical and responsible aspect of it, right?
Exactly. A lot of it comes because, you can't leave a lot of decisions to the corporations, especially with this AI boom, right? I think a lot of it, I'm not trying to say, obviously, I'm not trying to say we should have bigger government, departments, but a lot of this forecasting and retraining and the number of staff required should be coming from the federal government, because then they can start talking with the public institutions. They can start, giving stats for the young kids. So I want to know, like, if I'm going to take this degree, am I going to get a job in 4 to 5 years or 6 years? So they can start talking with the schools and start saying, okay, start aligning the future of our, nation to start going to these jobs, right? So there's no point just having hundreds of things to study. Okay, yeah, it's good to have to study because maybe you just want to learn personally, but there's no point studying something that it's not going to be needed in the next 2 to 3 years. And like you said, a lot of it is now going to be creativity, right? How to take different AI tools and how to do this. So they should be looking at now a new age of education.
Yeah, I think maybe the future of the workforce planning too. In the case, I think the gentleman that passed away may have been an accountant or something like that. But in the scenarios that we talked about, someone's been working for X amount of days, the health is deteriorating. Maybe there's hooked up with some sort of wellness app that says, hey, their blood pressure or some other reading or metric is out of whack. So they don't get in a situation where they have to go wait in a waiting room, emergency room for 8 hours, right?
Yeah, if this is done correctly, and I really do think we could be living the best, the golden times of human history. It's like we've worked, always had the hustle culture, work long hours, promotion. But I think if we do it right and it's done properly, because if what happens now, if they start replacing people with AI, you lose all these people lose their jobs. What happens next? crime is increases and spending decreases. So nobody wins. So if the corporations want to save money, because everyone will try to save money, right? But if everybody does it at the same time, you're going to have all of these companies laying off people. Crime goes up. No one's going to end up buying these, products or services, and then the companies are going to go down. But if you start looking at ways into retraining, reskilling, moving people into different roles, keep using the AI advancements into creating more opportunities, creating more sales, you can actually see having, the people still working with new AI technologies and more people having more time, free time. So like instead of coming into a 12-hour hustle and bustle, you'll just come into the day, settle everything, prepare all your workflows, do an AI health check, and then you can have a lot more free time, a lot more stress is reduced. So I'm very optimistic if it's done correctly.
Well, we need more optimistic people to help change it, because if what's coming down the pike, you're going to have people losing sense of purpose, depression, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, marital situations, people having thoughts of, you got to be careful of the words you use, so unaliving themselves in a sense, right? And then like you said, crime and other things, right? And if we don't, as a society, come together and try to figure this out before it's too late, there are dire consequences, right?
Exactly. Yeah, man. Even for me, like for fun, I've been writing a book, but I named it Humanity 2.0, and it's more like what we can live if we do everything in the right way. Another thing, and this is a study, like a white paper I've been working on. I'm not like trying to say like I'm a heavy, like people are like, oh, you're a socialist, you're a communist. But like one thing that we're going to have to look at, and it's going to come sooner than we expect, is, I believe, and even AI, Elon Musk mentioned it, is like some sort of universal salary or a universal top up. And again, I don't want to look like this guy's like, oh, he's trying to make people not work and give them money. But if it comes to a day where a lot of these jobs are not required and all the jobs are filled, you might look into maybe giving people a certain amount of money to keep the economy flowing. But at the same time, if you do have a job, maybe a universal top up, so you're not working and someone's not working, you're working, someone's not working, and you guys are getting the same amount. So there has to be something. I believe it's doable, but I think there has to be some sort of equation that works. But again, that's all to keep the economy moving, or else if we end up in a place where people are not spending and people are at home, depression, alcohol, yeah, you've mentioned it,
Yeah, well, it's also either universal income, basically. It's also a method of buying off the people, making sure that they're not coming with pitchforks to the politicians' houses, right? So, I mean, that's the dystopian scenario there. But we always want to end in positive notes. We got to build this space out responsibly. We got to think about the future. We have to understand the dystopian scenario. So what are the mitigation factors that we can do to change the future, right? Create the future. So any concluding thoughts, insights, encouragements to those seeking to get into the space or struggling to build their business?
I believe it's easier now than ever to start your own company. So I would say go for it. We don't have a lot of advancements like we have today. A lot of the stuff now are they're not like a software that you have to build. It's like a service that you can get. So if you're struggling and you're looking at starting your own business, just do it and go and try as you go. Like, for example, you are trying to push sales, go and look into such like HeyReach or NA9, or look at these workflows, start building it, and you're not paying much. Or if you want something for marketing, there's a lot of tools out there that actually make it cheaper for you, where even if you're still working full time, you can start building the foundation, during your free time, building and scaling. And I really do think that we're going to have a lot of companies now that are hitting 1 million ARR with like 5 employees, 4 employees, because of all AI tools out there. Again, it's once you scale, you need to bring the right people, but I believe this is the right time to do it, and the tools are out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. And if you have a job, it's probably good to try to figure out, do something on the side and build out. And if you don't have one, yeah, just try. But unfortunately, entrepreneurship is not for everybody, right? It's very hard. You think, oh, I'm going to give up my 9 to 5. Well, you're going to get into 24/7. And the question is, you're going to have to success doesn't come overnight. There's going to be dark times. There's going to be tough times. Do you have the financial resources? Do you have the personal support? Right. And that's why we're probably doing this podcast too, I'm meeting great people like you, and people can find out there's other people trying to sort this thing out, so they don't feel alone. Right.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. And like you said, it's especially to have these podcasts like yours out there people can skip a lot of the long hours of researchers. They can just come in here and learn from industry experts. I bet with you, and since you've had this podcast, your brain is just
Dude, I mean, I've grown exponentially in a year versus me just sitting in a dungeon reading white papers. Right now, I'm engaging with some of these thought leaders, and we're coming up. Like I talk about, I came up for a podcast. Like now, I understand why LLMs cost so much. We talk about quadratic scaling and all this stuff, right? And I have enough knowledge now. Once I get some of this podcast a little bit more stabilized, too. Like you, I'm planning to write a book, in 2026, and I think leverage some of the insights in the future of AI too, right?
Exactly, and that's one thing also to tell anyone go into podcasts. Just that's the fastest way to learn. It's through podcasts. A lot of times you might not have enough time to read books, and not only that, why I don't recommend books anymore. I mean, like AI study book. The game is changing so fast. So if you're reading a book on AI ethics or AI, a how-to guide on AI agents, in like 3 weeks to a month, a lot of that might be updated, right? So it's better to hop on these weekly podcasts, these quick medium articles rather than
because I mean, they could spend hours trying to research what you had, 15 years of experience, and be able to distill it into, a 1 hour episode. And one thing I've talked about on others on my podcast, I don't have time to go spend 8 hours, 3 hours learning the new nana banana or whatever it's going to be, right? But I call it snacking in a sense of like, if I'm trying to solve a problem for my business, I'll go test a new AI tool or new AI concept, maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and then apply it to something that's practical. So this show is about being practical and results oriented. Not like we're not building a science fair project here. You're not building a science fair project.
just
At the
go.
end of the day, you got a family and you got founders and other people that have to support themselves, right?
Exactly, 100%.
Cool. Well, I think we can talk all day about the future of the AI space. Mohamed, we're coming up on time. Where's the best place for our listeners to connect with you or learn more about you?
For me, it's my LinkedIn. I believe it's going to be on here posted. So LinkedIn, I'm very active. I try to respond to everybody wherever I can. Yeah, LinkedIn. Our website, if you want to learn more about Smart Workforce, it's just smartworkforce.io. And I'm looking forward to answering any questions anyone might have out there.
Awesome. Well, everyone make sure to connect with Mohamed. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn. If you can, actually like and engage with it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple. Mohamed, I've learned so much from this episode, especially about resource planning, the future of workforce management, etc. Right? How we can make, I guess, people to be able to manage the resources, but do it in a healthy and wise manner, right? I can't thank you enough, Mohamed, for sharing your insights with us today. Hey guys, just as we're shutting down the podcast, Mohamed got a ping on his phone. Some amazing news.
Yeah, no, just now I just looked at my phone. It says you've been shortlisted for the Winter 2026 Readiness Program. So it's one of our cohorts here in Canada. It's one of the biggest accelerators. So actually, look at the time. It's such a coincidence. It was just
what's the name of the accelerator? Sorry.
Altitude Accelerator here in Toronto region.
Yeah, so it's like your equivalent of the Y Combinator?
Yeah, we have a few, but this is one of the top ones here actually. So it is like Y Combinator or Techstars of America.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. Amazing news, man. 2026, right?
Great.
I look forward to connecting you more. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors. I hope you gained a wealth of game-changing, real-world insights to grow, transform, and scale to new levels and dimensions leveraging AI. See you next time. Thanks, everybody.